Welcome to Wake, a cold reading of James Joyce's Finnegan's Wake, just to hear it out loud. Join Toby Malone and TJ Young, along with some special friends, as we puzzle our way through what we once thought was an unreadable book to produce a surprisingly listenable podcast. It is Friday, August 9th, 2024. It has been 85 days since we've started reading, with 181 pages complete of 628, meaning we have 447 pages left to go and are 28.82% of the way through Finnegan's Wake. Welcome to episode 14 of Wake, the podcast which is not only recorded on both sides of the planet, but which is listened to in nearly 24 countries, which only goes to show that no matter what the quality of the podcast is, people still want to hear about Joyce. Even those podcasts which are fulfilling a long-held bucket list item, reading James Joyce's Finnegan's Wake out loud just once. I am your host, Toby Malone, joined once more by the man we all missed last week, TJ Young. Hi, TJ.
Oh, hi, Toby. I missed you too. I missed everyone as well. I was really hoping to be able to squeeze into that episode, but schedules just didn't align, and I was really sad about it.
Well, and then when you got the 12-hour time difference, it really means that the window gets smaller and smaller, and then me saying I could do it at 3 o'clock in the morning, my time, I guess, and then that gets a bit silly. But we soldiered on without you, and you were doing excellent work at your end without me. So we all are working in parallel lines sometimes.
12 hours apart. It's still crazy.
Yes. So we had an episode last week. We had my parents on as guests to fill in. Did you get a chance to listen?
I sure did. I actually asked you before you posted the episode. I was like, give me the episode so I can catch up. And I am absolutely just enamored. Well, I've always loved your accent. I'm just like, it's all there. I hear it all. It made me so happy. I was smiling the whole time and going through and circling things that I really liked, which was fun to do again.
Right.
And it was also fun to get the listeners' experience without worrying about the sound of my voice, which I constantly do.
Oh.
But yeah, I thought it was great.
Good. Yeah. I mean, I do want to apologize to everyone out there for the sound quality. I didn't get to really test it in advance about what it would sound like when we were sitting in my dad's office. And it was a little bit echoey and a little bit far away. I didn't have my microphone with me, so we were doing it straight into the laptop. And I also want to apologize for messing up the numbers at the top of the podcast. When I was listening the other day, listening back, and it said we are 23% of the way through. And I thought, wait, we're more than 23% of the way through. I didn't update my spreadsheet. So when I told you those percentages and pages, that was old data. So, this is what happens when I'm without TJ.
Now, here's my question. How much convincing did it take your parents to dive into this with you?
It really, it was a bit of a struggle to get my dad on board. My dad is a war hero, an old soldier, very set in his ways, a smart guy, but not educated, so he's the autodidact we talked about, and so he likes what he likes. He likes to sit in his chair. He likes to watch cricket. That's the end of the list. And so when I say to him, hey, would you like to read Finnegan's Wake? He initially said, no, I don't want to do that, because generally that's his reaction to most things. No, I don't want to do that because that involves not sitting in my chair or watching cricket. And I asked him a few times and he kept pushing it back. And then finally we got into a fight about it. And he said, stop asking me. And I said, whoa. And we went back and forth. And then he finally agreed to sit down. And I think having my mum there, my mum agreed immediately. She said, of course I'll do it. And of course, both of them have read Ulysses and Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man and Dubliners. They are both very familiar with James Joyce. And so I didn't have to convince them of why Joyce exists, like we did have to with Jordan and Eiley, some of our other guests who were going, wait, what is this nonsense? They were very much into the idea of Joyce, but the reading of it, I ended up putting it into a Word document and then blowing it up to 50-point font. And so they were reading it off the computer screen. And by the end of it, my dad said, if you want me to do another episode, I'd really like to. So he really enjoyed it. So we may well get him
how
back
those
on.
Things work.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, well, it's always I have this conversation with my daughter all the time because she spends a lot of time worrying about what maybe will happen if she does a thing. And then she does a thing and goes, "Oh, that was really fun." And you go, "Yeah, but you spent all the time worrying about all the possible outcomes. And
Right.
really, in the end, none of them worked out because generally everything was fine." So it's the same kind of thing. I mean, speaking of things you're working hard at and that worked out fine, I mean, how was your workshop? You were workshopping a new musical.
Yeah, workshopping a new musical, co-book writer on a musical called Kill the Whale, which is an adaptation of another piece of classical literature, Moby-Dick. I don't know what it is about my career. It has just ventured into classical
Yes,
literature
working on
adaptations.
doorstops.
you know, which, by the way, I never need to know that much about whales ever again.
Mm-hmm.
I was picking away at that book starting in January, and I was just like, this is just a chapter on whale's teeth. Cool, in the same way that we kind of approached
Right.
Three Musketeers, where we were like, this chapter is unnecessary.
Yep.
Thank you for the joke, but I walked in, gonna be completely honest, like I walked in imposter syndrome through the roof. I even sent you a text and I was like, Toby, I need send me your energy from across the globe. But by the end of the week, we made great strides. I want to say I rewrote like 50, 55 pages of the dang thing during that week, just up there knocking stuff out. But it's in a really great place, and I
Good.
feel really good about it. And I walked away tired but happy. So
Fantastic. Well, that's what you want. And hopefully there's a life for it in future. And we'll see you up there on the stage accepting your Tony.
and then I get to slide you into the acceptance speech and plug
As
the
promised. As
podcast.
always promised. Yes.
I've been promising that for 6 years now.
Yes. So, yes, absolutely. So, looking forward to that. And so, yeah. So, and as we all know, I'm back in Canada now. I was in Australia for 3 weeks visiting family, and that was really good to see. See my mum and dad and my sister. And while I was there, I actually had the good fortune of picking up a book. I was in one of my favourite bookshops. The shout out to the Lane Bookshop in Claremont, Western Australia. I was in the Lane Bookshop and I found this book called James Joyce, A Life. I'm just holding it up to TJ here, written by Gabrielle Carey, who is an Australian writer. And this is a really fascinating book. I don't know if it's going to be globally available because it is an Australian publisher, and I think it's quite a small publication and a Melbourne publisher. But it's a point by point summary of all the things that went on in Joyce's life. 81 small chapters with little details and facts about Joyce's life. And so this is really fascinating to learn a little bit more about his background, a little bit more about his family, about his wife and children, his education, and then as we go through his life, we get to the 4 major points where he publishes his books. And so Finnegan's Wake is a big part of this book, and the last half of the book, obviously, or the last 16 years of his life, was fixated on Finnegan's Wake. And so this is, I really want to recommend this book as a really interesting read. So if you do find a copy of it, and I'll post a link to it in the show notes. But one of the things Gabrielle Carey very usefully collates a lot of different things about the books to give a sense of what they are. And so this is how she describes Finnegan's Wake. So these are all the different ways in which Finnegan's Wake has been described. She calls it a mighty allegory of the fall and resurrection of mankind. We know that one, yeah. An ark to contain all human myths and types. A polyhedron of scripture. A postmodern encyclopedia. The most profoundly anti-fascist book produced between the wars. An Irish word ballet. A wholesale safety pun factory. An immense poem of sleep. An engagement with the very matter of our being, a history of the world, and a history of the future.
A history of the future is like deep.
Isn't that cool? Yeah, it's a really interesting thing. I mean, imagine you pulled open the New Play Exchange and someone had read one of your plays and had written a response and said, "This is an engagement with the very matter of our being." You'd feel pretty good about yourself, wouldn't you?
Well, now I know what the next one that I expect from you to say.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So the adaptation of Three Musketeers engages the very matter of our being. Yeah, it's really interesting, just the ways in which, and so there's a lot of stuff in this book that we've talked about already, but there's a lot of stuff that is quite fascinating. And looking at these different kinds of angles, there's the different sections on HCE in here, different sections on the thunder words. And the one thing that I found most fascinating was there's a section here about how in 1919, one of Joyce's patrons wrote to him and said, "You are very good for the soul, I think medicinal. You are so unflattering to our human nature. So though you are neither priest nor doctor of medicine, I think you have something of both." And the idea that this is medicinal. And then Gabrielle Carey footnotes it by talking about how Joyce has been proven to be medicinal. And she links to a story of a young sufferer of obsessive-compulsive disorder whose psychiatrist recommended that she read Finnegan's Wake to help her cope with her OCD. And the post, it wound up as a TikTok video with over 175,000 likes, with this young girl says, "Has anyone read Finnegan's Wake? My therapist gave it to me to help with my intrusive, obsessive, racing thoughts. I've just started reading. It makes my mind so clear. I've never experienced silence and finally know what it feels like. 10 out of 10 recommend, seriously."
So remember at the very beginning of this process, we said, who the hell is Joyce to come in here and write this book?
Yeah.
If I got a letter that said, "You are neither doctor nor priest, but you couldn't tell me nothing. You couldn't tell me nothing." I'd move through the world like this too. So You know what?
Yeah. And the fact that it's still helping people all these years later. I mean, looking at this thing that looks like word salad. I was on Amazon the other day, and all of the 1-star reviews it's fun reading the 1-star reviews of Finnegan's Wake, because they're like, this doesn't make any sense. The number of people who are saying, "I couldn't read this because it's written in Gaelic," which I think is hilarious. But the fact that it is that medicinal sense, that someone can take this and it looks like one thing to one person, but being able to be seen in the way in this dream language is really fascinating and really kind of profound. And so I thought that was really great. And I will link to this book in the show notes, because I really enjoyed reading it, getting a little bit more of a sense of Joyce. I'm finding that the longer we get into this podcast, the better I get to know Joyce, because everything keeps popping up out of the woodwork in terms of details about his life, and it's not good for my sleep. I tend to dream a little bit in Wake, which is a little bit disruptive, but these are this is the price we pay, I guess.
I said something the other day, and I was like, "Yeah, I was reading this one play." And its text is just very Joycean. And people looked at me, and I was like, "That's probably the most pretentious thing I've ever said." I was like, "This is who I am now."
Yes, we are Joyce people, Joyce apologists.
Yeah.
So last week we got started on 1-7, the Shem the Penman episode, and we talked then about sibling rivalry. And so the other thing that came out of Carey's book that I was reading was Joyce had a fairly robust back and forth with his own brother, Stanislaus. So he used to task him, because Joyce essentially exiled himself from Ireland for the last 25 years of his life. But at least Ulysses is intricately intertwined with the streets of Dublin and stuff. And so he would send letters to his family in Dublin asking them to do research for him, like how long would it take you to climb over this fence? Because he wanted to make sure that it was accurate. It's so good. It's so dramaturgical. I love it. But he would send these things to Stanislaus asking him to do this kind of stuff. So he tasked him with research matters. He described him as the whetstone on which he tested all his work. Once again, very much dramaturgical. Stanislaus used to bail Joyce out Financially, he was often the target of his wrath. They used to fight like crazy. But they were also so close that Stanislaus ended up relocating to Trieste to be near his brother, and he lived there for the rest of his life. So they were hugely close, but at the same time, remember in episode 0, Stanislaus's critique of the wake, where he said it was the work of a psychopath or a huge literary fraud. Now, I'm sure that's taken out of context. I should try to track down his entire statement. But still, it takes a certain kind of closeness to be able to say something like that about your siblings. So,
for sure.
Siblings be feuding. And so last week I asked a question about sibling rivalry between me and my sister. My parents were pretty chill on the subject, but I have really great memories of how my sister and I used to go at each other. So you have many siblings.
I do.
How are your relationships with yours?
I'm glad that we're adults now, because as children, it was vicious. If I was in my sister's room, she would sometimes literally pick me up and throw me across the hallway. I've hit many a wall and many a door. But even now, I would say our rivalry is a bit healthier. With my oldest sister, we have like a fitness rivalry. So if like either one of us kind of falls off the wagon for a little bit, we'll call and text each other and be like, "Oh, okay, I see that you haven't moved." Or she's like, "I want to do a 5K," and I was like, "That's cute," and she's like, "Well, you're gonna do it too," and so I did it virtually. And she was like, "Here's my time," and I was like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna do better." So there's that sort of thing that's happened. But in high school and middle school, I didn't like the person I was back then, because we were at it all the time. I mean, to the point where we had our own phone line just for me and my siblings, and my sister would change the voicemail to say, "And if you're calling for TJ, hang up." Like, I don't want any of his friends on my phone and all this other stuff.
Amazing. Yeah. I love that. When I was back in Australia, I came across a book that my parents gifted to me and my sister in 1982. And it has written on the inside a very nice dedication from my father that says, "To Toby and Georgia, Merry Christmas, love, Mummy and Daddy." It's very sweet. And in the years following, I had scrubbed out the word Georgia from that dedication. And then I had written in my name all over that cover page. And then on the back page, I've written in giant letters, "Not George's." So I would have been maybe 5 or 6. But it's one of those things where the rivalry makes no sense, but it's having someone in your space and you can throw them across the room because they're your sibling, and so
what are you supposed to do?
Yeah, exactly. So Shem and Shaun are kind of going at each other a little bit here. We've got a lot of back and forth between these two, where Shaun, with his character assassination of Shem, and then Shem's apology for his existence. So we'll have that to look forward to. As always, we're reading from the Penguin Modern Classics edition of Finnegan's Wake, published in 2000 with a foreword by Seamus Dean. Today we'll be reading the second half of chapter 1-7 from pages 182 to 195 in this edition. This is a segment that is titled Shem the Penman by Oxford World's Classic edition of 2012, which also included brief summaries of what's happening in each subsection, which we will address at the end of the reading. And now, without further ado, Finnegan's Wake. The House O'Shea, or O'Shame, Quiver Piano, known as the Haunted Ink Bottle, no number, Brimstone Walk, Asia in Ireland, as it was infested with the raps, with his pen name Shut, sepia scraped on the door plate, and a blind of black sailcloth over its wan fwinchogue, in which the soul-contracted son of the secret cell groped through life at the expense of the taxpayers, dejected into day and night with Jesuit bark and bitter bite, calico hydrants of Zolfor and Scopolamina by full and 40 quinzianos. Every day in everyone's way, more exceeding in violent abuse of self and others, was the worst, it is hoped, even in our Western playboyish world, for pure mouse farm filth. You brag of your brass castle or your tiled house in Ballyfermont? Nigs, nigs, and nigs again. For this was a stinksome inkenstink, quite personal to the rottle. Smatter of fact, Angles afternoon browsing there, thought not Edam reeked more rare. My word! the warped flooring of the lair and sound-conducting walls thereof, to say nothing of the uprights and imposts, were Persianly literatured with burst love letters, telltale stories, sticky-back snaps, doubtful eggshells, bouchées, flints, borers, puffers, agamedoid almonds, rindless raisins, alphabeti-formed verbiage, biblical viases, ompter dictas, vices umbic, ahems and ahas, ineffable tries at speech unsyllabled, euomes, aeoldums, flew foul smut, fallen lucifers, vestas which had served, showered ornaments, borrowed brogues, reversible jackets, black-eye lenses, family jars, false hair shirts, god-forsaken scapulars, never-worn breeches, cutthroat ties, counterfeit francs, best intentions, curried notes, upset Latin tin tacks, unused mill and stumbling stones, twisted quills, painful digests, magnifying wine glasses, solid objects cast at goblins, once current puns, quash potatoes, messes of mottage, unquestionable issue papers, seedy ejaculations, limerick dams, crocodile tears, spilt ink, blasphematory spits, stale chestnuts, schoolgirls, young ladies' milkmaids, washerwomen's, shopkeepers' wives, merry widows, ex-nuns, vice-abbesses, pro-virgin super whores, silent sitters, Charlie's aunts, grandmothers, mothers-in-law, foster mothers, godmothers' garters, tress clippings from right, left, lift and syntrum, worms of snot, toothsome pickings, cans of Swiss condensed milk, highbrow lotions, kisses from the antipodes, presents from pickpockets, borrowed plumes, relaxable hand grips, princess promises, lees of wine, deoxidized carbons, convertible collars, divaluca doffers, broken wafers, unloosed shoe latchets, crooked straight waistcoats, fresh horrors from Hades, globules of mercury, undeleted gleet, glass eye for an eye, gloss teeth for a tooth, warm moan, special size, long sufferings of long standing, ahs, ohs, oohs, sees, yas, yos, gias, nays, thors, so's, yeses and yeses and yeses, to which, if one has the stomach to add the breakages, upheavals, distortions, inversions of all this chambermaid music, one stands, giving a grain of goodwill, a fair chance of actually seeing the whirling dervish, tumult, son of thunder, self-exiled in upon his ego, a night long, a shaking betwixt-tween white or redder horrors, noonday terrorized to skin and bone by the ineluctable phantom. May the Shaper have mercy on him, writing the mystery of himself in furniture.
Of course, our low hero was self-valator by choice of need, so up he got up, whatever is meant by the Stourbridge clay kitchenette and Lathagorgolium fowl house for the sake of eggs. The apple does not fall very far from the dumper tree, which the more melodious jigsmith, in defiance of the Uncontrollable Birth Preservation, Game and Poultry Act, playing lally rook, crooky nook by the dodginess of the lantern, brewed and cocked and poached in the Athenor, whites and yolks and woats, to the frilling frondurance of Mars Blanc que la Blanche Himmer and Amir muy bien, with cinnamon and locust and wild beeswax and licorice and carrageen moss and blaster of berries and asters mess and husters mixture and yellow nans embrocation and Pinkerton's patty and stardust and sinner's tears, accredent to Sheridan's art of panning, chanting, for all regal to the like of the legs he left behind with Liddy Fun, Letty Fan Levin. His cantraps of fermented words, abracadabra, cobra colorum, his oifs a la Madame Gabrielle de Eglise, his a la Mistress B de B Minefeld, his heiress Usquadamala a la Pomme de Chel, his uvas an uvis à la sulfate de soude, his orichis sauté salmone à la monsieur, his soufflusion of orgs with some cat on toysat à la miad parade, his pogadovas à la fennel, his fridges à la tre creme. And what was meant for a closet? Ho! If only he had listened better to the four masters that infanted him, Father Matthew and Le Pierre Nobel and Pastor Lucas and Padre Aguilar, not forgetting lay teacher Baldwin. Aho! His costive Satan's antimonian magnesium limo limolithmesius. Nature never needed such an alcove so. When Robert and Mumsell, the pulpit dictators of the nudgement of their legal advisors Mercers, Codex, and Podex, and under his own benefaction of their pastor, Father Flamius Falconer, boycotted him of all mutton suet, candles, and Roma ruled stationery for any purpose. He winged away on a wingulp's chase across the cathartic ocean and made synthetic ink and sensitive paper for his own end out of his wits' waste. You ask, in Sam Hill, how? Let manner and matter of this for these our sporting times be cloaked up in the language of blush-fed porporatis of an Angelican ordeal, not reading his own rude Dunsky Tungar, may ever behold the brand of scarlet on the brow of her Babylon, and feel not the pink one in his own damn cheek. Premium operfex, altus prostera, ad terram viviparum et sun concit Pontinium sin ulla Pedro nec venera suscipeto pluvilia atquetis descentis prisomatis nitibus nudis unti nati facent sese ad pro penquenius flens et gemmis in manum summum evectium highly prosy, crap in his hand, sorry, poster animo negro extracius classicum polnis sectus pronum quod apavit dectentonius sus in vas olim honorable tres, tres, trististe possut idiom sub invoctium invoctine fractorum gemonirum medaria et gordari lecte ac melliflu mixet salmium que incept linguam me calamus screbe veloceter scribentis magnum voc cantitans. Did a piss say he was dejected, asked to be exonerated? Denum ex strenum torpi cum divi oranius inconditate mixot coto frigoric exposito incantassum sibi fecte indelible, faked Orion's in indelible ink. Then pious Aeneas, confirmant of the fulminant fireman, which enjoins to the Trailus terrain that, when the call comes, he shall produce niche thematically from his unheavenly body no uncertain quantity of obscene matter not protected by copyright in the United States of uranium or bedeed and bedewed and bedanged and bedung to him with his double die, brought to blood heat, gallic acid on iron ore, through the bowels of his misery, flashy, faintly, nastily, appropriately, this Esuen Mansvik to the first till last, all heist, wrote over every square inch of the only fool's cap available, his own body, till by his corrosive sublimation, one continuous present tense intergrument slowly unfolded all merry visioning, mood molded, cycle wheeling history. Thereby, he said, reflecting from his own individual person life unlivable, trans and transaccidented through the slow fires of consciousness into the divi-dual chaos, perilous, potent, common to all flesh, human only, mortal. But with each word that would not pass away, the squid self which he had squid screened from the crystalline world, waned, char, green-old, and Dorian Grayer, and in this in its dudhood. This exists, this exists, that it's after having been said we know. And dabble take dabnol, and the doll dabble dab, abble dabble. So perhaps so perhaps aglagloglo mensuratively as spanking after all an arc last for at least on his last public misappearance circling the square for the defete of Saint Ignatius poison ivy of the fickle crowd hop on the sex day of Hogsauber, kill him our king, lay him low, and brandishing his bell bearing stylo, the shining keyman of the wilds of change. And what is sauce for the Zassy is sauce for the Zazums, the blonde cop who thought it was ink was out of his depth, but bright in the main.
Petty Constable Sisterson of the Cruce Croon Crowl it was, the parochial watch, Big the dog, the dig, the bog, the bagger, the dugger, the beggadag deggabug, who had been detailed from pollute stoties to save him, this the quem, that the quam, from the ligature libelous effects of foul clay in little clots and mob mauling on looks, that wrong counted the tenderfoot, and eviling near the living's mean uigutherum, knockmarie compti me, reeling more to the right than he lurched to the left on his way from a proto-prostitute. He would always have a little pigeoness somewhere with his arch-girl's Acharias smock name of Murgat. Just as he was butting in and round the corner of bad times under a hideful between the rival doors of warm Bethels of worship, through his bawdle house fongster, greeting for gracious auras as usual. Where ladies have they dog, have they that a dog mean sort herring? Sergo, search me, the incapable reparteed with a self-evident subtlety so obviously spurious, and raising his hair after the grace with the Christmas under his clutch arm, for portis massa and pertis messus and pertis miss and parties master, like a prance of findigos, with a shilto shalto slipney stripney in he skittled. Squikey. The all-white poor's guardian, palpably of ball-tossic stomach, was literally astonished over the painful sake, how he burst itself, which he was gone to, where he intent to did he, whether you think will, wherein the whole current of the afternoon, what's the souch of a search hads of hits of hymns, urged and staggered thereto in his country ports at the Caledonian capacity for loot whiskey, on the caftan's wineskin, and even more so during, looking his bigmost astonishments, it was said to him, achoo, fun the concerned outgift of the dead med dirt, how that Arad bejibbers conspuent to the Dominical order and exing noblish permish, he was namely coon bringer at home 2 gallants as per royal full poultry till his murder. Nip up, nabbit. Poltergeist cons donned her hoploits. Kick! What mother? Who's Potter? Which pair? Why, namely Coon. But our undiligence has been Pluthero-tested so enough of such Porterback's lowliness, too base for printing. Perpending that Putterick o' Purcell pulls the cold stone out of winter waters and still the seas, sing for Haring our king, sept oct nov des Shaun fibs march. We cannot in mercy or justice, nor on the lovum of the labyranto, stay here for the residence of our existing disgusting Tamstar ham of 10 man's thirst. Justice to his mother. Brawn is my name, and broad is my nature, and I breet on my brow, and all's right with every feature, and I'll broon the bird on brown Bess's bungs gone bandy. I'm the boy to bruise and brace. Bouse!
Stand forth, Naaman of Nolan, for no longer will I follow you oblique-like through the inspired form of the third-person singular, in the moods and hesitancies of the dependent, but address myself to you, with an imperative of my vindicative, provocative, and outdirect. Stand forth, come boldly, jolly me, move me, zwillingly through, though I am, till laughter in your true colors, ere you be back forever till I give you your talking to. Shem McAdamson, you know me and I know you and all your shimmeries. Where have you been in your untrim, enjoying yourself all the morning since your last wet-bed confession? I advise you to conceal yourself, my little friend, as I have said a moment ago, and put your hands in my hands, and have a night's long, homely little confiture about things. Let me see. It is looking pretty black against you, we suggest, Shem Avec. Will you need all the elements in the river to clean you over? It all in a fortifying Pope's priest power, bull of a tender to booth. Let us pray. We thought, would, and did. Cor, quaquid, ube, quando, quomodo, quatis, quabus, auxiliaris? You were bred, fed, fostered, and fattened from holy childhood up in this two Easter island to the Pai-Ju of hilarious heaven, and roaring the other place, plunders tonight of you, blunders what's left of you, flash as flash can, and now, forsooth, a nogger amongst the black ends of the dastard century, you have become a twosome twin minds, foreness gods, hidden and discovered, nay, condemned fool, anarch, egoarch, heresiarch, have you have reached your ununited kingdom on the vacuum of your own most intensely doubtful soul. Do you hold yourself then for some god in the manger, Shelohim, that you will neither serve nor not let serve, pray nor let pray? And here, pay the piety. Must I too nerve myself to pray for the loss of self-respect, to equip me for the horrible necessity of scandalousing? My dear sisters, are you ready? Slogging off my hope in tremors while we all swim together in the pool of Sodom? I shall shiver for my purity while they all weep big for your sins. Away with covered words, you Solomonites, for old Bathsheba baths. That inhumanious detail. Did you name it? Cold Calder, Gee, Victory. Now Operbro of upslung pipes, John Jacobs, while yet an adolescence. What do I say? While still puerile in your tub suit with button legs, you got a handsome present of self-rising syringe and twin feeders. You know, Monsieur Abgot and the art of arts, to your cost as well as I do. And don't try to hide it. The penals lots I am now poking at, and the Weezer sort of was you should. If you were a bold a stroke now, as the curate of christened you, Sonny doff the candle. Repopulate the land of your birth and count up your progeny by the hungered head of the angered thousands. But you thwarted the the wishes pish of the cotton parents, soft among countless occasions of failing. For, said you, I will Ellenchant, adding to the malice of your transgression. Yes, the changing its nature. You see, I have read your theology for you, alternating the more the morosity of your delications, filtered love, trysting by traumas, small piece of pen mark, with sensible, susponsible, passability, and prostability. Your Lubbock's other fear pleasures of a butler's life, even extruding your strub strabismal apo- apologia when legibly depressed upon defenseless paper, and thereby adding to the already unhappiness of this our pop-eyed world. Scrupulative, all that too with uh, cantrids of countless chantelines, and manish as many as the manifold congested around and about you for acres and roods and poles and perches, thick as the fluent sands of cow water, accomplished women, indeed educated, far from being old and rich behind their dream of arrivism, if they had only their honor left, and not deterred by bad weather, when consumed by amorous passion, struggling to possess themselves of your bouche, one son of scourge for all daughters of anguish. Solus cum sola sive centrus cum omnibobs. I have been the best man for you myself, mutely eyeing for the natural knot, debauchery vases and vessels preposterous, for what would not have cost you 10 bolivars of collar work, or the price of one ping pang, just a lilt, let us trilt, of the oldest song of the wooed wood world, to we, to one, accompanied by a plain gold band. Hail, hail, high bosom heaving Miss Mistress Morana of all sweet heartening bride's murder meteor. Her eyes so glad, or her eyes so gladsome, will all take shares in the groom.
Sniffer of carrion, premature grave digger, seeker of the nest of evil in this bosom of a good word, you who sleep at our vigil and fast for our feast, you with your dislocated reason have cutely foretold a Jophet in your own absence, by blind poring upon your many scalds and burns and blisters, in petigonous, sore and pustules, by the auspices of that raven cloud, your shade, and by the auguries of rooks in parliament, death with every disaster, the dynamitization of colleagues, the reducing of records to ashes, the levelling of all customs by blazes, the return of a lot of sweet-tempered gunpowder ditched unto dust, but it never struck in at your mudhead's obstantity. Oh, hell, here comes our funeral. Oh, pest, I'll miss the post. That the more carrots you chop, the more turnips you slit, the more Murphys you peel, the more onions you cry over, the more bull beef you butch, the more mutton you crack a hack, the more post hot herbs you pound, the fiercer the fire, and the longer your spoon, and the harder your gruel, with more grease to your elbow, and the merrier the fumes your new Irish stew. Oh, by the way, yes, another thing occurs to me. You let me tell you, with utmost politeness, were very ordinarily designed, your birth wrong was, to fall in with plan, as our nationals should, as all nationists must, and do a certain office. What, I will not tell you, in a certain holy office, nor will I say where, during certain agonizing office hours, a clerical party all to yourself, from such a year to such an hour, on such and such a date, at so and so much a week pro anno. Guinnesses, may I remind, were just a gulp for you, failing in which you might have taken the scales off boilers like any box shop of Yorick. and do your little thruppenny bit, and thus earn from the nation true thanks right here in our place of burden, your born of travail and ville of tears, where after a divines of prodigence you drew the first water gasp in your life. From the crib where you once was bit to the crypt, you'll be twice as shy of, same as we, long of us, alone with the colt in the coroner, where you were as popular as an Armenial with the faithful, and you set fire to my tailcoat when I hold the paraffin smoker under yours. I hope that chimney's clear. But slackly shirking both your bullet and your billet, you beat it backwards like Boulanger from Galway, but he combed the grass against his stride, to sing us a song of alibi, the cut-home call over the grey-bounding, slow-rolling, amply heaving metamorphosius that oozy rocks parapangle their preposters with. Nomad, mooner by lamplight, Antonos, shemming amid everyone's repressed laughter, to conceal your scratchophily by mating, like a thorough-paced prosodite, masculine monosyllables of the same numerical moose, an Irish emigrant the wrong way out, sitting on your crooked sixpenny stile, an unfrill-frocked quack-friar you. Will you, for the laugh of Shakespeare, just help mine with the epithet? Semi-Semitic serendipitous you. Thanks, I think that describes you. Europeanized Afro-Yank. Shall we follow each other's a step longer, drowner of daggers, whiles our liege, till yet a stranger in the front yard of his happiness is taking, real helper, one gob, one gap, one gulp, and gorger of all, his refreshment?
They grew up beside you amid your erosions of the speediest in Novena Lodge, Novara Avenue, and Podium Bommel. Off, out of work, one removed from an unwashed savage. In his keeping and in yours, I pose you know your possum hides is your possum. I pose you know why possum hides his cause. He hain't the no gum triumph that other. im- uh, Immaculatus from head to foot, sir, that pure one, all truest of other times, he who was well known to Celestine circles before the sped aloft, our handsome young spiritual physician, that was to be seduced every sense of self-willing celibacy, and most winning counterfolly on our income share uh, Lotry, a chum of the Angelettes, a youth those reporters so petitely wanted as game fellow, that they asked his mother for idle erps brup to let him tome to kindergarten peas. And being his scooter long and ten, they were all real brothers in the big just right home where Dod lives, just as Teddy Fifi the life out of him, and pat and pass him one with another like musk from hand to hand, that mother smothered model, the good looker, with not a flaw, whose spiritual toilettes were the talk of half the town. For sunset wear and nightfall in use and day broken dawning and noonchin showing and the very thing of tease time. But him would lay low with one hand one fine May morning in the middle of the might, your bosom foe, because he must your speller on you, and because he cut a pretty figure in the focus of your forceps, not one did you slay. No, but continent, to find out how his innards work. Ever read of the great grand landfather of the vision builders, Babu, the Bergensmeister, who thought to touch both uh, him meals at the punt of the risen staff, and how wishy washy sank. Turn two pages. Uh, the waters of his thought. Ever thought of the heretistical macaroon of, of the two sissy maids, and how bulkily he shat the ructions goneril? Ever hear of that Foxy, that Lupo and the Mononax of the virgin air of the Morrises, a blethering ape? Malingear in luxury, collector general. What has your lowness done in the mealtime with all the ha milkars of cooked vegetables, the hats full of stewed fruit, the suitcases of coddled ales, the parish funds, me shammer, man, that you kitty coax so flexibly out of the charitable butteries by yowling heavy with a howl voice drop for your horrible, awful poverty of mind, so as you couldn't even pledge a crown of thorns to paw a coat off Trevi's, and as how you had bad no how you was bad no end, so you was, you whelp, you sinner petri and sinner poli, with the chickens great gape and pas mal de seli, which by and by Rinaldo is the ordinary emtric French for grenadier's drip, to let you have your plank and your bone wash? Oh, that has troubles you lost, to give you your pound of platinum and 1,000 thongs a year. Oh, you were excruciated, in honor bound to the cross of your own crucifixion, to let you have your Saturday spree and your Hollings night sleep. Fame would come to you twixt asleep and awake, to leave to lie till Periskeeve, Skeeve, and the cock crows of Denmark. Oh, Jonathan, your stomach. The simian has no sentiment secretions, but weep catharsis for all of me, pain and shaman. Oft in the smelly night will they wallow for a clutch of the famished hand. I say, them bearded Jezebels you hired to rob you, while you were sodden straw impolitely you in encored, Aranish and Nambogalish, those horn made ivory dreams you revved of the Ruth you called your compassionate, a beauty from the Bible, of the flush pots of Erston and the hanging garments of Marilyn Bone. But the dormer moon sheesh smiled Celine, and the light throwers nickered. Who's winning? Who's winging we? Come part yourself, you inconsistency. Where is that little alimony nest egg against your predictable rainy days? Is it not the fact, gainsay me, cake eater, that while whistle whirring you crazy elegies around Temple Toe Mount Joystone? Let him pass, please, good Jerusalem. In a bundle of straw, he was bow-basted after haymaking. You squandered among the underlings the overload of your extravagance, and made a hottentot of Dubliners cross sick with your crumbs. Am I not right? Yes, yes, yes. Holy wax and holifer. Don't tell me, Leon of the Fold, that you are not a loan shark. Look up, old sooty. Be advised by mucks and take your medicine. The good doctor mold it. Mix it twice before your repastures and powder 3 times a day. It does marvel for you grippins, and it's fine for the solitary worm. Let me finish. Just a little Judas tonic of my gam of all jokes to make you go green in the gazer. Do you hear what I'm seeing, Hammett? And remember, the golden silence gives consent, Mr. Ankle Gazer. Cease to be civil. Learn to say nay. Whist! Come here, studiousness, till I tell you a wig in your ear. We'll do a whisper drive for it. For if the Barish, Barishines got a twitter of it, they'd tell the housetops, and then all Cadbury would go crackers. Look, do you see your dial in the rocking glass? Look well. Bend down, stig me till I. It's secret. Igri, I say, the Bousselis, the Bousseliers. I had it from Lamppost Shaw. He had it from the Mola. and Mole took it from the blue-coat schooler, and Gay Socks jotted from the Poppypheus wife, and Ratipool tipped the wink from the old Mrs. Tin Bullet, and as for she was confused by the pro-brother Thaclius, and the good brother feels he would never be defecate, that he would need to defecate you, and the flimsy follets are simply beside each other. And Kelly, Kenny, and Keogh are up, and in arms, that a cross may crush me if I refuse to believe in it, that I may rock anchor through the ages if I hope it's not true, that the host may choke me if I beneighbor you without my charity. Shh, Shem, shh, you are mad.
He points the death bone, and the quick are still. Insomnia, somniorum, or morm. Mercius, of himself. Domine vopsius, my fault, his fault. A kingship through a fault. Pariah, Cannibal Cain, I who oathily forswore the womb that bore you, and the paps I sometimes sucked. You who ever since have been one black mass of jigs and jim-jams, haunted by a convulsionary sense of not having been, or being all that I might have been, of you meant to becoming, bewailing like a man that innocence which I could not defend like a woman. Lo, you there, Cathmon Carberry, and thank movies from the innermost depths of my still a trite heart, wherein the days of youth are ever mixed my mind, now ere the comline hour of being alone at hands itself, and a puff or so before we yield our spiritus to the wind, for, though that royal one has not yet drunk a gouttelette from his consummation, and the flower pot on the pole, the spaniel pack and their quarry, retainers and the public house proprietor, have not budged a millimetre, and all that has been done has yet to be done and done again, when days woe, and lo, you're doomed, joy day dawns, and lah, you dominate. It is to you, firstborn and first fruit of woe, to me, branded sheep, pick of the waster paper baskel, by the tremors of Thundery and Ullarin's dog star, you alone, wind-blasted tree of the knowledge of beautiful and devil, I, clothed upon with the meteor and shimmering like the Horisons, astraglody diamonomologos, the child of Nilfit's father, Bilsb, to me unseen blusher in an obscene coal hole, the cubilium of your secret sigh, dweller in the down and outermost, where voice only by the death may come, because ye left from me, because ye laughed on me, because, oh me lonely son, ye are forgetting me, that our turf-brown mummy is a-coming. Alpilla, Beltilla, Siltilla, Deltilla, running with her tidings, all the news of the great big world. Sonny's had a scrap. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Bab's baby walks at 7 months. Way. Bride leaves her raid at punches time. Stud stoned before a racecourse full. 2 bells that make the one appeal. Dry Yanks will visit old sod, and forteried skirts are up, mesdames, while Parry Comicany wears popular short legs, and 12 hows to mix a tipsy wake. Did you hear, Colt Cooney? Did ye ever, Philly Fortescue? With a beck, with a spring, all her rill ringlet shaking, rocks drop in her tacky, tram tokens in her hair, all wave to a point, and then all inunduation, little old-fashioned mummy, little wonderful mummy, ducking under bridges, bell-hopping the weirs, dodging by a bit of bog, rapid shooting round the bends by Talak's green heels, and the pools of the Fuka and the place they called Blessington, and slipping sly by Sally Noggin, as happy as the day is wet, babbling, bubbling, chattering to herself, deluthering the fields on their elbows, leaning with the sleuthering slide of her gid-gaddy granny ma gossipacious Anna Livia. He lifts the life wand, and the dumb speak. Qua, 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 qua. That was the second half of Chapter 1-7 from Finnegan's Wake. TJ.
It's great to be back.
It's so good to be back. I made the call earlier on that we were going to be that rather than doing like 8 or 9 pages at a time, we're doing 1.5, 2 pages. How was that for you?
I think that it allowed me to listen to more of it, if that
Yeah,
makes sense, right?
agreed.
I was like, oh, okay, we can hear the flow a little bit more, and it allowed my brain the necessary rest between sections. It also helped when we got to that Latin section. I was like, just push through because you're almost done. But I also feel like, because like stepping away from it even for just a little bit allowed me to reapproach it with like I know that I just got to read the words, right? And
Mm-hmm.
and I also caught myself because I was like, oh my God, I'm doing it. And then I messed up right afterward. It's like when you're like, I am ice skating, and then you trip and fall.
Yep.
But yeah, I was like, this is, there's something, I don't know if the language has gotten easier or just like I've sat in the novel long enough to where I kind of feel like I understand the flow a little bit more. But yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think you're very clearly getting a little bit more of a flow on, which is just practice, I think. And so we get used to the way that he is trying to trick us. You can see the way he's corrupting things and messing with things and really changing things around. But yeah, I feel as though we're getting a bit of a flow on, and it's nice when you can finally, when you hit the stride and you go, oh, I know where we're going here, and you realize when there's a section where you go, wait, I haven't ended this sentence, and I've been half a page reading, and then you glance down and you go, there's no period on this page. This is a list, or this is going. So then you go, okay, you want momentum? Here's momentum, bro. Let's go with it. And so,
understanding his tricks by this point, I was like, we're almost 200 pages in, and understanding the way that he structures things. And like, even in the last section you read, the exclamation points in the middle of the list is supposed to be like, and this is a different person saying a thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're finding ways to find the quotation marks and find the who's it pointed to and stuff like that. So just out of to get best us.
So just out of interest with the Latin, which I genuinely did not throw that into your section on purpose. I divided it up equally, and I really didn't realize that there was Latin in there. Just out of interest, while you were slogging through that manfully, I threw that text into ChatGPT, and ChatGPT gave me it came back and said, the text you provided is a highly stylized and somewhat archaic Latin passage. Here's a rough English translation, and the stuff that's happening in this Latin is for real. Like, there's a lot of really grimy stuff going on. So this is what it means. First, the craftsman, the high creator, to the fertile and all-powerful earth, without any shame or pardon, having taken on a rainy cloak and with his loins girded, as though born with naked buttocks, approached himself, weeping and groaning, and shat into his hand. Later, having relieved himself of black waste, he struck the classic horn and placed his own excrement, which he called his dejections, into a vessel once honourable for sadness, and under the invocation of the twin brothers Medard and Godard, he joyfully and sweetly poured it out, singing a psalm that begins, "My tongue is the pen of a swift writer," chanting with a great voice. Finally, from the vile dung, mixed with the pleasantness of the divine Orion, cooked and exposed to the cold, he made an indelible ink for himself.
So that makes sense, though. Highly prosy, crap in his hand, sorry. And did a piss, says he was dejected, asked to be extra. I was like, what?
It's amazing the way that he's just like, yeah, and this is how I'm going to tell this part.
Is that like the creation myth to him? Like, some dude pooped in his hand and said, "Earth, here we go."
So this is Shem the penman getting hammered by Shaun. And then I love, and so the Oxford World Classic summarizes this section with the page and line numbering conventions standard here. So this is, we read from page 182 to 95. And so from basically most of this chapter is a single note. So we're continuing on from the previous chapter where a character assassination of the writer Shem by Shaun, his brother, that goes up to 193.30. And then from 193.31 to the end of 195 is Shem's apology, his self-defense, and his invocation of ALP just around the corner. And I love this. I love that he's like, I'm really sorry. I didn't mean to do all this sort of stuff, but here comes mum.
Yeah.
So the brother hiding behind his mother's skirt.
It's like, ha ha, what you get?
Yeah. Our turf-bound mummy is coming.
I'm finding that I enjoy the sections where it is obviously like one person just giving someone else the riot act.
Mm-hmm.
And I just feel like I chuckled internally. I didn't LOL, but I chuckled internally when it was like, oh, by the way, yes, another thing occurs to me. Like, you thought you were free. No, I'm coming after you.
What we were talking about before we started reading was that familiarity and contempt that siblings have for one another, where you know all each other's secrets and you don't have any sympathy because that person, I mean, it becomes very primal, right? Like if there's too many babies and not enough teats, then someone is hungry. And so
someone got to go.
Yeah, that primal sense of like, well, I'm going to push you out because otherwise I don't eat. Or the dog who eats all of the food first, then isn't hungry. So it's a similar kind of idea that here with these brothers who've got all this beef for good reason or bad, and we've already heard about the HCE getting hammered by the gossip of the town, but now it's inside the family, and the only thing that can save us, in the same way that the only thing that could save HCE was ALP. Once again, it's ALP, and we come to the next chapter, which is Joyce's favorite chapter and probably the most famous chapter of the book, and Olivia chapter, all about the river, the Liffey.
I'm just happy to be back inside this book. I never thought I'd say that, you know.
Well, it's a good way to sort of just focus your brain for an hour and just to sit down and go, okay, well, I don't know the meaning of all of the things that I'm saying, but this is kind of transcendental. I mean, I read another quote recently from Joyce essentially saying that this was his way of reassuring his immortality because this book would be read and read and read and read by scholars for 1,000 years, and they would never understand it fully. So that sense that, well, once you get to the bottom of a meaning, then you can put it aside. And I feel as though there's so much of that here.
There's one thing that stood out to me, and I just want to throw this out here. There was a phrase that I said, and I don't remember what page it was on, but it was absurd person singular, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's a play.
Yeah, there is. Alan Ayckbourn.
Yeah, who, if you research like why he named it that, he's like, it doesn't mean anything. I'm like, lies you tell now. Lies you tell. You just didn't want to point back to the fact that you got it from this book. Now I want to fight you.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess they're both punning on the same thing of third person singular. But yeah, it feels like a little bit. I mean, it feels like it could be a coincidence if this was a better read book. I think it's.
Well, you know, it's not like Alan was dumb, you know.
No.
Like,
oh no.
So I think I think it was something that he probably read, and then because people have done papers on what the title of that play means, and
yes,
I remember in grad school I was like looking it up, and in an interview he's like, it means nothing.
I mean, in that same sense of people taking inspiration from things, at the bottom of page 192. You can see there, fourth line from the bottom, gainsaying me. And then he says, cake eater.
Yeah.
Clearly a phrase that was read by the creators of the Mighty Ducks.
Yes.
Yes. Cake eater being an insult spoken between children, meaning someone who is rich and doesn't understand the life on the streets. So clearly... Cake eater, yeah. Jussie Smollett, I believe, is speaking that phrase.
Forgot all about that.
Yeah. So yeah, really. I mean, I'm sure that the writer of the Mighty Ducks was putting in a reference to.
This book is the history of the future.
It is the history of the future, man. I mean, there's a T-shirt in that. I swear. There's some fun things to say. I hit a patch of ice and just flew with it, and I managed to get to the end, which I was like, I'm going to blow this, because I got the momentum going when I said big, the dog, the dig, the bog, the bagger, the dugger, the beggar, dag, degger bug.
I was about it.
And I thought, I'm going to blow this, and then I'm going to be mad about it. And then I got to the end and was very proud of myself. So
I'm proud that the portmanteaus didn't like rock my mess like they normally do.
Yeah. Oh, when the biggest problem we have in a chapter is foul Latin, we can be forgiven for that, I think. Whereas
I'm in love with masculine monosyllables. I'm like, yes, just man grunts.
Yeah. So we've really got a sense of Shaun and Shem and what's going on. And the next chapter, as I said, we get to meet ALP. Or at least we've met her already, but we get to really wallow in her, pun intended, because ALP is also the river. But we'll talk about that in the next chapter, so looking forward to that. Yeah, is there anything else that stands out to you?
No, thank you so much for translating that Latin, because I'm going to tell you right now, that was going to be the first thing I did when we got off this. And so I'm like, that's one less thing I have to do. No, it's, if people are listening and they're not following along in a book, I'm gonna highly suggest they do, because half the pun is just in the way words are spelled, and you can see the way that he's just playing with sound and how it changes the meaning, but it doesn't change the meaning, and how it just heightens the music or twists it a little bit. There's a lot to unpack, but you can also just allow it to skip by you. But if you read along, then you can also see. Like, one of the things that I love is that when I'm reading along and I see there's a mispronunciation when you've got something and you say it in a different way, and I always think, now that's just deepened the phrase. Which is my way of saying that when we make mistakes, it makes it better. So I'm assuming the Joyce estate will agree with us. Let's hope so. Because I tripped over. I was like, I know that word's supposed to be responsibility, but I was like, sponsibility, and my head was like, no.
But still, I think Joyce is all about that. In this book that I've been plugging, she talks about how Nora Barnacle, Joyce's wife, was continually kept awake because Joyce was writing his book all night, through the night, leaning on the cover of an old suitcase, writing it in hand in crayon. And she was kept awake all night with the sound of him laughing at his own genius, guffawing at his brilliance. And I love that. I love that idea that he's coming up with these things, and he wrote every word of this in by hand. And it's all at the British Library.
Really?
In London, yeah. All of his papers are there, which Nora donated to the British Library instead of the equivalent in Ireland, because she had no time for Ireland anymore, that Ireland had turned their backs on them. One of the facts that is brought up is that in 1923, there was a book published which was a book of who's who in Ireland, the most important people, Irish people at home and abroad. 1923 being the year after Ulysses was published, and Joyce was not in it.
Oh, so they're like, you know what, we're good.
Yeah. So the Joyces were very much against the idea of what Ireland became, and were very happy, and they lived out the rest of their lives abroad.
So that's what we do. That's how we end the podcast. We fly to England, we go see them, and then we get our Finnegan's Wake tattoos.
Yes.
Hey, round trip from Chicago is only $500.
Let's do it. I'm in. Let's make that happen. Maybe we can figure out a way to get our tattoos done at the British Library while we're looking at the manuscript.
I doubt they're going to let that happen, but
Well,
we just take photos and we just say, you have to post this up.
I mean, wouldn't that be the most badass sleeve piece of all time, is if you got a facsimile of a page of Finnegan's Wake in Joyce's handwriting and got that all up and down the arm?
I mean, to some. I don't know.
I don't know. I mean...
when I'm in my coffin and they're like, what does it mean? And they're like, nothing, boo-boo. Nothing.
I'm keeping that one in mind. So it may yet happen. Oh, okay. Before we come up with any other bad ideas, that is all the time we have for Wake this week. But join us next week for the final chapter of Book 1. Yes, that's right. We got to the end of the first book of 3. Amazing. This is Joyce's self-proclaimed favourite chapter, the legendary 1-8, Anna Livia. I've been Toby Malone, joined once more by TJ Young, back where he belongs. We'll see you next week, river enthusiasts. This has been Wake, a cold reading of James Joyce's Finnegan's Wake, just to hear it out loud. If you've made it this far, thank you for your dedication. Join us next week for another segment of Finnegan's Wake and a chat about what we've found. Wake is a Moon Street Media podcast, engineered by TJ Young and Toby Malone. Our theme song is The Ballad of Perso Riley, arranged and performed by Meg Logue after James Joyce. Wake is recorded in Canada, where Finnegan's Wake is in the public domain. For community and bonus content, join us at our free Patreon at patreon.com/wakepod. If you have questions about Finnegan's Wake, don't ask us. We're just as confused as you are. See you next week.